are a set of master students, PhD scholars, postdoctoral fellows, and working professionals who are based from various locations around the world. We have people from universities such as Princeton, Purdue, UC Berkeley, Cambridge, Toronto, NTU, and NUS, to name a few, with specialization ranging from science and engineering to social sciences to humanities. So in that sense, we are truly multidisciplinary. However, we are common in one aspect, and that is in our unwavering commitment to contribute to the development of India. Sitting miles across, miles from our motherland, we are as eager as all of you are in being part of our India story in the decades to come. Consequently, from time to time, we have invited influential people with authority to speak and discuss on issues that impact India. We have had Minister Nitin Gadkari, Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, ex-Minister Jayant Sinha, and also Professor Ila Patnaik with us over the past few months. Okay, so now let me come back to today's event. Most of us who are here today, and many of you who are watching us live from social media channels, had to leave India in the pursuit of better educational standards and also increased employment opportunities. However, I'm sure most of you will agree with me that our hearts still lie in India. And given a chance, we would definitely like to return to India if there is a change from the status quo that has existed for long in our country. Now, often we blame the politicians or criticize them for not being forthright in their views and for being politically correct on almost all the occasions. However, the guest today is definitely a living testament to an exception to this notion that we have. Now, what are the challenges that we as a country face in attracting the bright talents back? And what we can do to circumvent those problems? To discuss more on this, we have today a man who is known for his frankness, a man who never shies away from expressing his thoughts, a man who is also known to work hardly on every issue that he takes up in national interest, and a man who knows how to take those issues to their logical or legal conclusions. Well, the man doesn't need any more introduction. It's my utmost delight to welcome and present to all of you Rajya Sabha MP and ex-Union Minister of the Government of India, Dr. Subramanian Swamy. Dr. Swamy, welcome. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation to be with us here today. We received huge response from people after we put up the advertisement for this event. Of course, the registrations were unprecedented. We could not accommodate everyone today in the meeting here. However, I'm sure many of those are watching us live from social media platforms. So over the course of next 1 hour or so, we would listen to Dr. Swamy's thoughts on the topic Roadmap for Reverse Brain Drain in New India for about 10 to 15 minutes, followed by the question answer session. So before kicking it off, let me tell you a few lines about Dr. Swamy, as is expected of any host from any event. Dr. Subramanian Swamy is an Indian politician, economist, and statistician who serves as a nominated member of Rajya Sabha since 2016. He holds a bachelor's degree in mathematics from University of Delhi, a master's degree in statistics from ISI Kolkata, and a PhD in economics from Harvard University. Before joining politics, Dr. Swamy worked as an associate professor of economics at the Harvard Faculty of Arts and Sciences, and the full professor of mathematical economics at IIT Delhi. He was an elected member of parliament 5 times between 1974 and 1999. During 1990 and 1991, Dr. Swamy served as a member of the Planning Commission of India and as Cabinet Minister of Commerce and Law in the Union government. In the Narasimha Rao government, between 1994 and 1996, Dr. Swamy was chairman of the Commission on Labour Standards and International Trade, which was a cabinet rank post 10. Dr. Swamy was a long-time member of the Janata Party, serving as its president until 2013, when he finally joined the Bharatiya Janata Party, or the BJP. Dr. Swamy has written on foreign affairs of India, dealing largely with China, Pakistan, and Israel. Being a crusader of ultimate integrity in public life and anti-corruption, he has been actively involved in several high-profile cases, including 2G, National Herald, Ram Janmabhoomi, and most recently, Sushant Singh Rajput, to name a few. Now, without further ado, I would now like to hand over to Dr. Swamy for his opening remarks. Dr. Swamy, the floor is all yours. Dr. Swamy, you are muted.
Krishani, you can unmute him.
Yeah, okay. Yes, we can hear you now, Dr. Swamy. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for this invitation. As I've formed to send scholars, and as I find it challenging, and you have given me a topic of reverse brain drain to speak for 15 minutes, and then, of course, questions. Questions is as you allow. I mean, I will not turn down any question, but you as the moderator de facto, you can decide which you will allow and which you will not allow. But I give as good as I get. So if there's a nasty question, there'll be a nasty answer. So first of all, let me say that I lived in the beginning when I went to get my PhD in 1962. I landed up there in the fall semester. And by grace of God, I took the PhD generals, which normally people take after 3 years. I took it within 6 months, and not only cleared it, but got a very high grade. And one of the most famous economists of the Department of Economics at Harvard was Simon Kuznets, who got the Nobel Prize, one of the earliest to get it. And I worked on it. I did my thesis under him. My thesis also was cleared in a year's time. And then I became assistant associate professor. And then when the choice came for tenure, I had to decide whether I would take US citizenship, which was required. Those days, permanent residence was not enough. And therefore, I chose to go back to India. And I became professor of economics at IIT. And landed into a lot of trouble, which I ultimately was the victor, which is a separate story. But anyway, I must say the students I had in IIT Delhi were superb. And I felt that they were as good as the students I taught at Harvard. So I begin by saying that, well, there is something called brain drain, people of brains leaving India. Of course, lots of people leave India, and they've been leaving over the last 2 centuries. And we have people in Trinidad and Barbados and these places where they have generations they have been there, Africa, Mauritius, Kenya, Ghana, so on. So what we are, when we talk about brain drain and reverse brain drain, we are essentially talking of the kind of audience that we have today. People who are in the frontiers of knowledge. And you know that economics teaches us that all countries which have made progress and become developed countries, their growth rates, which were high growth rates, were not so much due to more capital and more labor, but by introduction of innovations. And that is, for example, locomotives and blast furnace of Bessemer blast for steel plants. That started the Industrial Revolution. And then wireless, ultimately the internet, the end of the last century. And these innovations added about 60% of the growth for these countries. So in a country which wants to grow fast, more capital, more labor will have lots of diminishing returns. So you just move along a curve. And if you want the country to accelerate, then you have to move from curve to curve. And that jump in curves, which raises the productivity of both capital and labor, is by innovation. So when we say reverse brain drain, we are thinking of those people who come back to India and be provided with an environment to work on innovations and produce them and use them. Innovations are of various types. Some have already been, some are inventions in abroad, which we apply them to Indian conditions. Desalination of seawater has been invented by the Israelis, but we need to modify it and have it used in India. Same thing with nuclear technology and so on. So first question I would say is, reverse brain drain is a question which everybody is confronted with a dilemma. And I was also confronted with a dilemma. In terms of teaching pleasure, in terms of research, in terms of availability of libraries, documents, materials, you can't beat these developed countries, whether it's the United States or Canada or England or Germany. These countries provide their scholars with all these opportunities where you can do research and with minimum dislocation to your work in terms of hunting for anything. As engineers, there is a respect in the companies you work for the work you do. And I found this in the United States. I have very little experience of other countries. In the United States, even if somebody doesn't like you, but if your work is good, he will hide his dislike of you and he will give you your due. This is not there in India. In India, if you are considered compliant, then you'll get anything and everything you want. But if you are brilliant and habit of talking back and correcting your boss, and then you are considered troublesome and you have a lot of problems. Now, I had this problem as a personal experience when I returned back and to IIT to teach. And at that time, socialism was the heyday of socialism. Mrs. Gandhi was prime minister, and the 5-year plans and so many other things which are part of socialism. So I said India cannot grow faster than 3.5% per year. India must grow at 10% per year. But for that, we have to shift to market economy, not laissez-faire, where anybody can do anything he likes, but sort of a market having regulations, and within those regulations you. So therefore, this is what Mrs. Gandhi objected, and I lost my professorship. And nobody stood up for me. And those whom I knew when I was a professor, they avoided me if I ever ran into them. And it was a very lonely life. So first thing I would say to the reverse brain drain, you are going to come back to India. You must have a commitment. Doesn't matter if I fall into a ditch, but I'm not going to go back. I mean, visiting back is another matter, but I'm talking about going back and settling down. Most Indians during my generation, once they found some blocks like this, they would just pack up and leave. And many of them have done very well abroad, but they have been lost to India. But the circumstances when I came back and circumstances today, they're very vastly different. I would say there are some advantages to living in India. I don't have to drive my car to the supermarket. I don't have to do my own laundry. I don't have to clean my own bathroom. It's not that I'm objecting to doing that as something beneath my dignity. I would say that's a waste of time for me in terms of what I could do with my time. I don't drive my own car. I mean, so therefore, in India, you get all these luxuries, which would be considered luxuries in the United States, but in India, it is easily accessible to anyone who comes with, and positions himself in a good place. And with the Western education degree and your knowledge of technology, economics, whatever, you have, once you get a position here, your life is much more comfortable. And the interaction with people is much more easygoing here. Your neighbors are friendly. People just drop in without appointments, without intimation, and everybody has a gets together, has tea. There's a much more a societal interaction which you do not get in the West. In the West, I've seen even today most of the celebrations of overseas Indians in the United States is done with Indians only. And the socialization is a limited phenomenon, except perhaps in terms of post-conference, where you go to a conference and then you have a dinner party or something. So I would say, if I were to say, what is it that I didn't have in the United States that made me come back? Patriotism is a small part. It must be there. I mean, I want to improve my country, and I want to make it great. But that is by itself is not a sustaining force. Sustaining force is the family, access to education, your comforts, your ability to leverage what you want to do. So therefore, when you come back to India, there are two things you have to make up your mind about. And that is that once I decide to come back to India, I'm not going to go even if they put me in the ditch. If you have that commitment, I think you will never be in the ditch. It is basically those who put you in the ditch. I think people who think that why this guy would stay here, why would this fellow stay here? If we make it life miserable for him, he'll go back. And that has been the past practice. I became the exception, and I became a terror afterwards. As a consequence, everybody get out of my way. I could do what I wanted. By then, I could not. When I was first fired from IIT, of course, I won the case later on. After 21 years, I rejoined IIT for one day, and then resigned, saying that I don't think IIT is fit for me, and give me back my back salary at 8% interest, which I did get after one more battle, one more court battle. But today, I would say that I hold a status which I can never hold in the United States. I am an Indian, no questions about it. Nobody thinks of me as any kind of a foreigner. I am available for any level of a society. There are no glass ceilings for me. It's only my ability to challenge that glass ceiling, but otherwise there is no glass ceiling beyond which I cannot go. Whereas in the United States, I have seen with Indians after Indians, they end up, very comfortably off, very respected, but there is a glass ceiling. When it comes to wielding power, there is a glass ceiling, and that glass ceiling operates at different ways and with different people, but it is there. So when the reverse brain drain, we want people, because no economic growth in India is possible without innovation. And for that, we need a stock of young people. Young means, I mean, at least below 35. And then in terms of management, I would say below 50. These people educated abroad, because you get a definitely a different horizon. They should come back, and then they should find a position where they can make decisions. And this cannot be ready-made for you. You have to come and fight it out. There are some people who did fight out. The Homi Baba fought it out and made us into a leading nuclear power. And we have the space. I mean, space, if you go there and see, you will find 50% are women, all dressed in Kanchipuram sarees with the earrings and nose rings and so on, highly religious. And they work because they have gotten degrees from abroad, but they're perfectly fitted into it. And today we are a great space power. We are not spending that much. So consequently, I would say, to conclude what I'm saying, I will say that reverse brain drain should not be done by the government offering opportunities to return. That partly doesn't work because the bureaucracy is not going to make it very easy for you once you come back. Once you are in their grip, it will not be the same. You come back saying the kind of life I would lead in India and the satisfaction that I've done something for my country, that's why I'm going back. But before you come back, you should have been long enough in the United States, for example, to have earned sufficiently and put the money in the bank or in your stocks or whatever, so that there is never a situation where you will be wondering where my next payment is going to come from for running the house. So I think a person in the United States can easily come back after 7 years of working with an amount by which he should not be afraid of temporary removals or retrenchments and so on and so forth. Now, therefore, don't come rushing back. Develop some roots so that you can go back. I came back in 1970, but after that, I went frequently. In fact, between even though I was a member of parliament, between 2001 and 2011, I went back every year. And I went to teach at the summer school because that's only 2.5 months in the summer where there's not much political activity. And I taught every year till I fell foul with some of the Indian leftists and some of these people who want to control India by another ideology from the one that I was professing. So I never made any attempts after that to go back, and I couldn't anyway, because I'd by then become nationally quite well known. I had responsibilities, political responsibilities, and so on. So if you come back, government, I would like to see the government make it much easier. I would like to see merit count. If you have merit, you rise. I'd like to see all these cliques that are there removed. They are much less than they were when I first came back. It was suffocating when I came back. Today, it's not. But your motivation should be so strong that nobody can test you on having to come back. So, but the country needs you because we need innovations, and you are the brightest minds. You can head the Microsoft. You can, do software work in the United States, where people say that you are the world class. The United States is partly world class because of you. Y2K would never have been solved but for Indians who produced the program. So doctors are loved in America because the private attention that you give. You're not like, a distant doctor as the native, the white Americans are. The Indians have this reputation that they take personal care. So we want doctors, we want all these people to come back. But for the moment, India is not in a position to guarantee you that you'll come back and you'll find no difference in the work culture that you have used to and the work culture we have in India. But you can play a role if you have that determination to come back, to change that so that future generations can come back to a superior work culture than before. This is what I want to say in the beginning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swamy, for setting the stage perfectly for the interaction to begin. So what I can got from what you said is our commitment not only to return, but after returning to combat all the challenges and to be resolute that we will overcome all of them. So that is very, very important. And to take everything to the logical conclusion is what I am really looking forward to from your life, in fact. So I think we'll have many more to discuss when the question answer session starts. So before starting, I just want to remind everyone that in the interest of the time, we would want the participants to please keep your questions short and pointed. We would like to take more questions, And also, please don't forget to introduce yourself properly before asking your question.
I'll do one introduction. That is Jagdish Shetty sitting here, General Secretary of the Virat Hindustan Sangam. And any program in the future you want, he is in total control of it.
Yes.
Which to expect and what time to expect.
Yes, Jagdish Shetty ji and Ramesh Swamy ji have been like really helpful in setting this event up as well. So thank you very much, Jagdish ji.
In the United States, but he's not here. I don't see him in
Yes.
the
Yeah. Okay, so I think we can now move on to the answer session.
Yeah.
So first up, we have Sayantan Sahu. So Sayantan, can you please unmute yourself and go ahead with your question?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Good evening, Dr. Swamy. My name is Shantan Sahu, and I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Maryland College Park, and I'm doing my PhD in atmospheric science. So,
Okay.
sir, my question to you is that why has there been a very few partnerships of public and private entities with universities in India, unlike what we see in the West? West, there is a very good collaboration. So,
That's right.
yeah, and going forward, if needed, how can we encourage such collaboration in India? Thank you, sir.
Well, first of all, what's happened is that we are transiting from the British educational system. And so when you have a partnership like this, there should be a mentality of deferring to scientific opinion when it comes to research. But if the bureaucracy says, well, we are paying you the taxpayers' money, and you have to be accountable to us, and they are not equipped to comprehend what you're doing, and they will measure it in the number of months you have been working for the research. Unless you create an institution by itself like this space research or the atomic energy, where peers judge your research. But when you have this participation of government and the universities, you will find that the bureaucracy will be suffocating so far. And that mentality has to change. The bureaucrats will have to know that the British have gone. It's no more the old hierarchical system was there where everybody is accountable to the government. That mentality will take more time to change, but is come a long way from what it was when I first returned to the United States.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. So now going ahead, our next is Samir Kumar Sharma. So Samir, please go ahead with your question.
Namaste, Dr. Swamy. My name is Samir Sharma, and I'm doing PhD in electrical engineering from University of Toronto, Canada. My question is, we see that we have many domain-specific institutions in India which are really great, like IITs, AIMS, IIMs, NALSAR. However, there is no collaboration in between. Whereas in West, we see that hospitals are collaborating with engineering facilities, and then they are creating. So, on the lines of innovation, why it is so? Can we have a solution for that in future?
Well, first of all, remember that in the United States, all leading universities, say, for example, the Ivy League universities, they are run by alumni. The alumni makes it good in life, and then they pour in money through endowments. Harvard is alumni run. Yale is alumni run. In India, every institution wants government grants. And therefore, government grants will come with it the bureaucracy. And that will lead to a situation where even appointments will not be done by your peers. There will be education ministries. And take for IIT. IIT is for all its excellence because the native brilliance of the Indian student and the vastly superior equipment and facilities available. IIT students perform, and then the competitive exam which selects them. The IIT students are far superior to students in other universities, but still in that the research suffers. The number of papers that our professors produce for publication in world-class journals goes down because there's very little accountability on that basis. In the United States, research mattered everything, and for a teacher. And teaching was not so important, but it is something compulsory. They had to do it. And most of the time, you would find teaching fellows doing more teaching than the professor himself. But the quality of research is judged by the peers, and is not judged by the administration of that institution. That is the reason why we don't have the kind of American system. I would say if there is a university based on peers, alumni who have made it big, who made money, they've gone abroad and made a lot of money. Don't give grants and funnel it through the government. You must set up a university and then manage it. And you have, it's not reinventing the wheel, so to speak, but just take the examples of what is being done at Harvard, Yale, and so on, these places. So I think it's basically a structural question, and it's a rectifiable question. And in India, we don't we don't do the kind of quality research we want to do or relevant research. Today, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu are fighting for one drop of water of Kaveri River. Can you believe it? If you want water, the coastlines are long coastlines of Tamil Nadu enough for 4 desalination plants to supply as much water as you want. But has anyone spoken about it? It becomes a Kannada versus Tamil issue. So I would say that addressing the problems that are there should be the ability of the government to assign it to a university and then say, I want this final product. I don't care how you do it, how much money you spend. This is priority. That is the way to go about it, instead of getting the CAG and all these other people involved to see that the money is properly spent.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy, for the answer. So next up, we have Baswant. Baswant, can you go?
Hello, Dr. Swamy. I'm Baswant Organti. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in computational chemistry at Linus University in Sweden. My question is regarding faculty recruitment at state and central universities. As we all know, it is very corrupted and has a lot of political and bureaucratic influence.
Yes.
So how we can improve the current system and bring more transparency and accountability into this system so that many researchers can come back and work in these universities? Particularly, I'm talking about the state universities.
No, why take IIT? President will nominate one. It's called the visitor. And the Ministry of Education will nominate another because they give 100% of the money needed by IIT. And then the Senate will nominate one, or the Board of Governors will nominate one. So 2/3 of it are people who are not, the president. How does he decide? Well, the set of names is provided by the ministry. So the ministry actually does two out of three. So naturally, you have to have been in the good books of the government. Otherwise, you won't get selected. And when I was selected as a full professor, I was only 27 or 28. But nobody knew what my views were. And it's only after I became a professor and I began addressing the dining rooms of, crowds of students in the dining room, already with my reputation, because I taught mathematics to engineering students by using calculus, differential calculus, integral calculus. They were all thrilled because otherwise they had to learn all these laborious graphs. And, I used to call that kind of economics the Shakespearean economics. It depended on how well you wrote your essay. But I changed that. So the students then wanted to learn more. They invited me, asked me whether we can produce the atom bomb. I produced a matrix analysis to show that it will not only be good for India to have the atom bomb, but it will generate economic growth. And lo and behold, I was soon called a fanatic and a Hindu Rashtra, all that. And Mrs. Gandhi felt also that I was no more. I said market economy produces faster growth, which of course the Chinese ultimately adopted. And Russia, of course, has disappeared. They used to say in my days, there's no inflation in Russia, there's no unemployment in Russia, there is no poverty in Russia. Now there's no Russia. I mean, there's no Soviet Union. There's only Russia left after 16 countries have been found out of the Soviet Union. So this is the intolerance that came because of the power of the state, which had a party in power, which had an ideology. That was the one that was the suffocating. So I think what we need is more and more universities which may take specific grants for a specific projects like the National Science Foundation in the United States. But the ownership, the control of the university, the selection of professors, all should be with the alumni. And that alumni must then be rich people who have done well, and they donate. And of course, I should have a tax system which gives them great exemptions, and they should run the universities. As long as the government finances our university as part of the budget, you are not going to have that independence.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. So next we have Shawnee. Shawnee, please go ahead.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Good evening, sir, and thank you very much for joining us today. It's really an honor for us. My name is Shawnee, and like you, I have done my bachelor's degree in physics from the University of Delhi, followed by a master's in physics as well from Cambridge, United Kingdom. Actually, I was with Krishanu there, and then now I am a PhD scholar in the Energy Research Institute at NTU, Singapore. So I also work on sustainable materials and energy for specifically for economically deprived countries and how we can give them more cost-effective solutions. So, my question is kind of in line with what you have been speaking about, that is adopting the style of privatization that foreign universities, like very reputed ones like Ivy Leagues, have adopted. So they take huge donations from very resourceful alumni, who in turn have helped them also attract very world-renowned academics. Right? They have poached academics from all over the world to their universities only by the lure of money. So, in India, I was wondering, since you've been on both sides of this dilemma, you've been an academic and you have been in the government. Could you shed some light on a critical overview of what could be a demerit of privatization? Because I see a lot of people against privatization of universities. They cite a lot of factors, a lot of issues. But what is your take on that, sir? Thank you.
I'm totally for privatization and a complete privatization. But then the question becomes, who's going to finance it? We have universities and medical colleges and so on in, say, Tamil Nadu, where which have come up like mushrooms. But it is private. But they use it for capitation fees. They put a price on a seat, and there's huge exploitation. And then that is the other extreme. We are not for laissez-faire. The word laissez-faire used for free for all. We need a regulated system where there are clear laws, and the implementation, if you violate those, then the government intervenes. Otherwise, it does not intervene. Who's going to be a professor? They will be nowhere in the picture. Now, can we do it? Of course, it has to be done. But we began with years of colonial rule where control was the key factor. And that control mentality, is this man going to be, today, even in politics, I can't be Narendra Modi's government finance minister because Modi thinks that I'm uncontrollable. Well, I am uncontrollable in the sense that if the prime minister says something wrong, I'll say, it is wrong, it can't be done. And they prefer, especially after Mrs. Gandhi's tenure, the ministers have to be people who will comply with what the prime minister wants, and the prime minister cannot know every subject. So this is a cultural problem. This cultural problem, as younger generations come, there will be marginal additions all the time. But if I were to look back in my coming back to India and what is today India, it's a far superior place in terms of freedoms. It's a far superior place in terms of academic recognition and so on. But you cannot have ultimately academic unless the financing of the university in its basic form is in the hands of private hands. So I'm for privatization, but I don't know who private will come. It shouldn't be another person who wants to exploit it to make money. And there are private institutions like MIT and so on. They are doing it very well. And in fact, I think even the Ahmedabad Institute of Management is still a private one. It's not government. It's not, unlike the Bangalore one and the Calcutta one. And they are doing very well. But those are places where I would call them as flukes. But we need now much more. But that's the direction we are moving. I think by the time you come to a position where you have to make decisions, when you come of that age, I think India would be a totally different place. And India is a very exciting place, I can tell you. I would never like to live in America. I'm nobody in America. I mean, in cocktail parties, I might have my peers there and each of them scratching, talking about their own research. But in terms of what I can do, what I can, move around, India is a very exciting place. But you need that thick skin that you don't get discouraged. That's the best place to learn how to do that is to read Bhagavad Gita, I think. I may put in a word age-wise.
Right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy, for the optimism that you showed that we can return to India given all the problems it has, but it definitely has something that is not there in other countries. And that's something that attracts a lot of people. And it's really interesting when you say you are all for privatization, given your strong views on the privatization attempts being made for Air India. So it's really interesting.
I can explain that. In fact, most people are surprised because they know me as a free enterpriser. Not a free enterpriser. I'm for the market. And when I got a chance, 1990, I started introducing it. When I held the cabinet rank position with Narasimha Rao, I had enormous influence on him, as his biographies now say. And we went lock, stock, and barrel in removing controls, licenses, everything was removed. So, but not, there's still more work to do. So but Air India, I had to make an exception because there are a number of duties that it performs for the national interest which private airlines cannot perform. And I can't explain to you what it is because it will be violating my what the secrets I learned in the as a cabinet committee, as a member of this parliamentary committee on civil aviation. But that many of us think that can be done in Indian Airlines. No, Indian private airlines. No, it can't be. And the privatization of an airline with just basis on what it is worth in terms of its travel revenues it earns is a very dangerous thing because Air India started in 1947 and now they have got aero bridges in London which are each is worth a few $1 million. And you now cannot make aero bridges. But Air India has the largest number of aero bridges because it has been accumulating since 1947. So there are many things about Air India and the privatization, if it took place on market principles, nobody in India, nobody in the world can afford it. It's that kind of valuation that I say that you are then throwing it away. You are selling your family silver. And therefore, and it has been running very good. It was making profit till 2004, till after which the next government decided to give the Arab airlines like Emirates, Etihad, and all these the most profitable routes. We closed down our routes in many places which were very profitable, so that say Qantas could take monopoly control over Australia. So therefore, to blame Air India for being in losses, that is your incompetence. There's nothing fundamentally that cannot make you profit. And so therefore I make an exception in India. I am not for lock, stock and barrel privatization. I believe there are some national interests which requires me to not allow nationalization to take place. I mean, denationalization to take place.
That's right. It's also about the national pride that you want it to be controlled by the national government and not by some private players, because it represents all of us, not only the few, but the most, or the all actually. Okay, so moving forward, we have the next question from Shubham Parekh. Shubham, please go ahead.
Mr. Swamy, my name is Shubham Parekh, and I'm a student of economics from the University of California at Berkeley. I'm originally from Mumbai, India.
Are you become a communist yet or not? Berkeley. Hello? Berkeley means to become a communist or not?
Not yet, not yet. Hopefully in the process. No. Just aside, my question for you today is, I think it's safe to make the assumption that India is not in a position to offer the soft cushion lifestyle a job in the Western world will provide. So as a consequence, the only scenario in which a majority of our diaspora will return from abroad will be to participate in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. However, even though we have had considerable improvements in the ease of doing business, sir, India still operates with a highly complex legal system, archaic labor laws, long pending court cases, and unfavorable tax impositions on startups like the angel tax. In such a disadvantageous scenario, sir, why would an Indian leave the United States to start a new business in India when they can do the same from the United States and sell to India, like, Zoho by Sridhar Vembu?
Absolutely. I began by saying, if you come to India, come with the determination, no matter what happens, I'm not going to leave.
Okay.
Otherwise, don't come. And come after earning sufficient amount of money in the United States or wherever, and that as your cushion to for you to come back, so that you will never have any problem educating your children. You won't have a problem of buying a house and maintaining servants and chauffeur and all these things. So therefore, I am not in carte blanche advocating, listen, all of you, for the sake of patriotism, just drop everything you have and come to India and improve it. I would say first we got to improve before you feel attracted.
Right.
But if you have this fire in your belly that, all right, I've enjoyed enough of the West and all the atmosphere. And by the way, I have a son-in-law who's now vice president of MIT, and my daughter, who is a financial expert after graduating from Harvard Business School and getting a PhD also from Berkeley. They are living there. And I told them that you are suitable to come back because you have to be a guerrilla fighter to survive in India.
Right.
You have to strike and when to retreat. But that guerrilla warfare mentality comes when you have this fundamental commitment that I will not leave. I've come back, I'm going to stay here. Because there are so many other things which are not economic, family, interactions, acceptability. Nobody will, think of you as a foreigner. And therefore, those are intangibles, but they matter to me. Even though I was, highly regarded at Harvard, and they hated to lose me. And that's why they kept inviting me year after year to come and teach for a brief while, 2 courses. And so, therefore, I say nobody should misunderstand that I think you're doing wrong by staying there. Not at all. It depends on your temperament. But if you want to be part of the transformation of India, which is bound to take place, and you're willing to put up with a lot of harassment for that, then India is the place which will reward you in the end. Today, when I look at what life I led in America and what life I'm leading in India, I will say it's 1,000,000 times better. I don't have the tensions and the fears of the future that any Indian or American or they have. Everyone is planning for the future. Here, I don't have to plan for the future because there are so many people who would be ready to help me stand up again. So I have fought elections. This is my 6th term, but I've lost a couple of elections, and nobody changed his mind. He said, "No, you try again." In America, if you lose 2 times, that's goodbye after that. It's a very, very, very tough society on the level of success you have to maintain. Here, it's not that kind of thing. As a mind, you have a much more peaceful mind in India than you can have in the United States.
Thank you, sir. Hopefully, most of us have this fighter mentality after this talk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Swamy, for inspiring people every day, in fact. So, okay, so we'll now move forward, and our next is Disha Sharma. Disha, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, Dr. Swamy. It is a matter of great pleasure for me to have this opportunity of interacting with you today. I am a
Yes.
postdoctoral researcher at the Policy School at Princeton, and
Oh.
and I'm trying to look at the interface between science and policy for air pollution mitigation.
Oh.
And I would like to define myself as a home-nurtured academic or researcher because I've had my education from BSc to PhD in India entirely. And it was only during my PhD that I have the opportunity of working at NASA on a Fulbright scholarship, and now I'm at Princeton.
Right.
So the question that I had in mind earlier on has already been answered in some way or the other. So now I have another question for you. And it is, how do you see Make in India sentiment aligned with, this broader theme of reverse brain drain? So do you think that it aligns and overlaps in terms of making pull factors conducive environment to bring back people, and also nipping the very issue in the bud, that is, not having to send people outside to get trained, while all this while by ensuring that the homegrown talent is not undermined or overlooked.
Well, this Make in India, I like to modify this, you see. I'm not in favor that everything should be made in India. Because as an economist, I know there are some comparative advantages of not making it in India. And whatever else you're making in India, to sell it and then with that money buy what you want. So I believe in trade and so on. But you see, in India, for all the criticism that has taken place, we have produced the atom bomb. All right. And this was done because a strong personality like Homi Bhabha had a never give up attitude. And nobody interfered with him because he wouldn't stand for it. And it was a prestigious project. We have now space. We are the cheapest satellite launchers in the world. And with what? It's 100% the domestic thing. There's no foreign collaboration worth the name in ISRO. And in fact, there was an attempt by foreign countries to destroy our capability because we are producing so much cheaper rockets to launch satellites. So they created some controversy about Maldivian girls and who were spies and our scientists being compromised, all cooked up stories. And of course, now we have regretted it and we have paid compensation to the people whose lives we ruined. So I would say that is another example. IITs, for all said and done, is an attraction for people from Africa, from Asia. So many people, they want to come to IIT. And this IIT has been done because of various, at that time, this kind of people who were directors, they had the nerve to tell the government to get off. Now, of course, the quality that of directors coming is not the same, but the momentum is there and it carries. And then these competitive exams for IITs, there's been hardly anyone saying it is rigged or that somebody with influence can with lower marks get admission. Hardly. And because everybody's looking over everybody's shoulder. People who want their children to get in and, they're watching who else is coming by the back door. So there are islands in India which show that we can do it. Now, so what I would say is Supposing there is somebody with a very creative mind who is working in the frontiers of knowledge. When you come back, you just don't buy a ticket and fly and come here. You have to have some kind of a small network through your family, which you should build up, who would then tell you the ropes, which you will learn later on, and then you'll be able to stand on your own. So that fallback position in India through family is a very important part of the survival in India.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Dr. Swamy.
So Dr. Swamy, just checking with you. So our scheduled time was till 9 p.m. Indian time. So would you mind if we drag it for another 10-15 minutes? We have got a few more questions.
15, but not more than 15.
Okay, sure. Okay, thank you.
I go to sleep every day at 9:30.
Yes, sure. We'll finish it within 15 minutes.
Wake up at 4.
Yes. We do know that. Okay, thank you so much. So without further delay, next is Neeraj Sharma. Neeraj, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Swamy.
Yes.
I'm really honored to have you on this forum. I'm Neeraj Sharma, and I'm currently working at Morgan Stanley in artificial intelligence. I've also done masters in computer science. So my question to you is like, how can India best handle this reversal and help in smooth settlement of its highly skilled and qualified workforce when there is a current global financial meltdown? Especially I work in fintech, and I feel this that the reverse brain drain will lead to population growth, means more consumers of goods and services pushing the economy forward. But however, it will also raise an unemployment due to rationalized migrants increasing the competence. So how the government is going to tackle the unemployment, and why can't we promote an idea of live local and work global, which is definitely a big hit during this time of pandemic? Can't we attract the remote employees at large scale to have a genuine chance to boost our local economy? If you can kindly enlighten.
If you ask me what is the single rotten quality of an Indian, I would say jealousy. You can't believe the extent of jealousy there is in India. And that is what pulls it down. There used to be a joke that if you catch Indian crabs for sale in the West, you don't have to package it as well as some other countries do, because no Indian crab can climb out of the box because the other crabs will pull him down back into the box. So the main thing you will run into of all the things, it's not bossiness or it is not bureaucratic madness, it is jealousy. And jealousy is because over the years, the Indians got fewer and fewer opportunities. And as the number of opportunities grow in India, you will see that the jealousy factor will go, and living in India without having to take care of family, so to speak, will not be a problem. So when you ask me how to live locally and think globally or work globally, that will come. And I can tell you that your field of artificial intelligence is enormous interest in India, enormous interest. And if you have a family network which can act as a cushion for some time, you will see in a very short time, you will have kind of work satisfaction you will never get in the West. Because this is an area we want to master, and there is a unanimity on this issue. We have also heard, I don't know how much true it is, that in the future, the language to be used in artificial intelligence will be Sanskrit. Is that correct? There's been a big...
So, it's a big debate going on this.
Yeah. So I saw this. I went to Google and saw it says there was a Journal of Artificial Intelligence, and there was an article in it saying that in the future, you don't have to invent a language, because each of these languages, like English, you can't computer get confused between put and but. One is but and the other is put. Whereas in Sanskrit, the Devanagari script makes absolutely clear what the pronunciation is and what the aspirations are and all this. So I think there is a lot of excitement about artificial intelligence. And it's a question of your finding the route by which you should come to India. And once you are here, you will find work satisfaction supreme, and certainly you will be able to go to conferences, you will be able to deal with your peers in the foreign countries and so on. So it depends on the subject. If tomorrow you came here to be an economist, there are lots of more important positions. But then if you have an aspiration that the government should listen to your policy, then your behavioral angularities will have to be smoothened out for dealing with bureaucrats, because the bureaucrats will have the final word in the present system. But in a new subject like artificial intelligence, desalination of seawater, hydrogen fuel cells, the country will receive you with open arms.
Yeah, thank you, Swamiji.
Swami. Our next question is from Arunothya.
Vanakkam Swamiji, I'm Arunodaya. I'm from Coimbatore. I work as a software engineer at Microsoft here in the US. My question is very personal, or I don't know, it's like a personal advice. So I feel that I studied at IIT Kanpur, and just after graduation, I joined Microsoft here. So I feel that life is always like filled with some tag. You're like either this or that. And then I hardly get the time to think what I want to do in life. And I see people here take break for a year and they understand themselves. And even if you see Steve Jobs or Narendra Modi or many people, right, a year and a half, 2 years, guys are happy and all that stuff. But all my peers really thinks like that. But I constantly keep feeling like I should find a constant source of revenue for my own self, where I don't have to be in the 9 to 5 bubble. So, what is your advice for that?
Before I answer your question, let me give you something I came to learn. There's a film actress called Julia Roberts in Hollywood. And she had so many Oscars, everything. One day she came to India, and then she became a Hindu. I'm not preaching for Hindus. I'm just telling you that the philosophy which has a blend of religion or cultural values, if you don't like the word religion, cultural values and material prosperity. That balance has to be worked out to be really happy. Now, people may make a lot of money, but if they're not going to be happy, it is useless. Pleasure and happiness, they are two different things which has to be harmonized. So my view is that if you have just come to the United States, spend another 5-6 years at least making enough money in your bank account, put in the bank account. With that cushion, you can come and explore. By then, India would have also changed quite a lot. And I think this decade is going to be a decade of change, big change, because we are going to be tested on many, many things. We have problems with China on the border. We have this huge COVID-19 pandemic, which we are struggling with. Our economy is headed downhill. So there are many things which in India, if you look at India's history of the last 70 years since independence, every time we had a crisis, this country came out on top. The first crisis we had was food crisis during the Congress period in the 60s, where there was a series of droughts nationwide. We didn't have grains, and then the Americans had to ship it. And there was such, at that time I just began teaching at Harvard. And I was so depressed to see headlines of the New York Times saying India is living from ship to mouth. That means the US ship comes, then only you can survive. Books were written, which you can even today access. Paddock and Paddock, two brothers of the State Department, wrote a book, World Famine 1975. You can Google it and get it. And it predicts that in 1965, that by 1975, the world will have a huge grain shortage. And some countries will have to be sacrificed, like soldiers who are, so badly wounded that they are not worth saving in a battle. The same way, there are some countries which are not worth saving because it's impossible to say. And he identified India as the country which is a bottomless pit, and it will. You cannot feed it. Even if the entire production of the United States were made available to India, it cannot fight it. But by the time 1975 came, there was something called Green Revolution which happened in India, and we were exporting grain. We have since then been self-sufficient in grain. So how did this happen? Same thing in 1990 when I took over, we were about to default on payments, foreign payments, and declared our country as a dud country. And there was just no hope. And by changing the economic system from a socialist system to a market system, we moved from a growth rate of 3.5% to 8% within 5 years. Whereas for 40 years, all these economists, including those in America like Amartya Sen, said India can never exceed 3.5% per year growth rate because that's the Hindu rate of growth. Like, it'll always be going slow and slow and slow. But in no time, we changed it. We have now abilities for inventions which we never thought we could do. We contributed to it in the Y2K matter. But today, if you see some of the things for automobile spare parts, we are still the world's best. There's a Deming Prize in Japan, we are in it. And, the atomic energy tomorrow, when the uranium gets exhausted and we'll have to go to thorium, we got 60% of the world thorium in our sands of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, which are in former monazite. So I'm only saying this, that you are in a very key position in the sense this is a place where the world is all before you. You can attain it by living in America. But if you want to have a purpose in your life, well, I think first of all, forget about the purpose till you accumulated enough money, and then you want to find a purpose. You can come to India, and then you will find life is much less tense than you have in the United States. United States, I've seen Indians very tense, and I've also seen that once they retired, they were mostly in parks feeding pigeons. I mean, that kind of thing. The society, even our Indian second generation doesn't want to look at them. Whereas in India, it's all a family. And I mean, it still is. There's a lot of erosion in it, but it still is. And that's why people are, in fact, much happier. And that is what attracted this lady, actress, Julia Roberts. You should sometimes go to Google and trace it and see why she converted to a non-Western religion, because she said whether it's Buddhism or whether it is Christianity, whether it is Hinduism or Sikhism, all of them emphasize this balance between pursuit of happiness and pursuit of pleasure.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. So in the interest of the time, I will just have a final question from my end.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people would agree with me when I ask you this. So you've talked a lot about reverse brain drain education. I want to go up slightly off topic and something which is more close to your heart right now.
Yes.
So I want to know from you, you are both in the government and also out of it. Because in the way your chemistry with the government is really really very interesting. You praise them on certain decisions that they make, and you also bash them when they make some errors in your judgment. So I want to know from you. You have seen a lot of governments, actually all the governments. So how do you rate the present Narendra Modi government among all the governments? And secondly, in the decades coming forward, how do you see the new India panning out?
Well, there are a number of dimensions in which you have to look at a government. In some dimensions, they will be terrible. Some dimensions, they will be superb. In terms of sort of unifying the society, despite all the propaganda of the West, Narendra Modi's government, or the BJP government, I would say, has been more successful. Since even in voting, in the past, the elections divided on caste, and they didn't look at performance. In a constituency, you had a person of one caste, and then the sitting candidate of another caste. The people, his caste will say, well, this is a better guy, better person to elect. But then, we won't have our man in the parliament or in the assembly. So there has been a change in mind that we must look ourselves as a national entity instead of regionally in caste terms and so on. They're melting. I wouldn't say it's gone. It's still there, but it's much reduced. And but on the other hand, in terms of masterly guiding through crises and producing results at the same time, Narasimha Rao's government is unparalleled. I mean, I don't think there's been anything better. Rajiv Gandhi, but for that scandal, did a lot for our strengthening our defense. And his wife, of course, I don't think much of her. You don't have to follow my likes and dislikes, but I think he was a very nice, able person. And he really wanted India to be a strong country. And he made it strong. The first defeat the Chinese got after 1962 was in Sundurung Valley in Arunachal, where we gave such a thrashing to the Chinese that they withdrew completely. And after that, the Chinese began to agree that they will discuss on the border. They'll say it's disputed. They won't say it is mine. There are a lot of changes took place. And then I went to China in 1981 and got Kailash Mansara route opened, which, they had closed it for, and it's a communist country, but they did it. So and now, of course, there's a deterioration that has got another problem. But I would say Narendra Modi's government has performed very poorly in economics because he doesn't know any economics. And his method of relying on people is not conducive to talent. He doesn't, he's much more a principle of a, it's like, he's like a orchestra conductor. He will, wave his, whatever that is called, the stick. And then accordingly, these people will, play their musical instrument. That's his style. I mean, it's not that, I can fault him for it, but that is his style. And he has not been able to get people as a team. He's a singleton with a lot of people, obedient ministers. That's not the way the cabinet is run. These are some of the examples. So I can't say who was the greatest prime minister. Not possible. But if I go sufficiently back, I can say in terms of decision-making brilliance, there's never been a parallel to Sardar Patel. We were, when the British left India, they didn't live in India as India and Pakistan. They left India, Pakistan, and 600 independent countries. All Rajas were declared independent countries. And of them, 500 he merged into India. And that's why we are today so big. Otherwise, we would have been as small as Pakistan. So that brilliance, Mahatma Gandhi had another kind of brilliance. He collected masses and he created a party, All India Party, which was there in every village and all done in 20-30 years. So each has these qualities. And I think it's question is what you want. Do you want a strong leader who doesn't brook any other leadership? Or you want a team captain? You want a Dhoni or you want a Tendulkar? That is the question.
Right, and you have recently expressed your desire that Dhoni should join politics, so that's something to also look forward to.
Yeah, Dhoni was a great captain.
Yes.
He knew get the best.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Dr. Swamy, and to everyone watching us here, so we are now nearing the end of today's event. First of all, I would like to thank Jagdish Shetty ji and Ramesh Swamy ji for all their help in setting this event up, and also turning our dream of having Dr. Swamy with us to a reality. I'd also like to thank everyone who is here and who are also watching us live from various social media channels for joining us in this event. And finally, Dr. Swamy, for sparing your time and being with us here and lighting up today's discussion with your intellectual and insightful comments. Thank you very much.
I'll end with one prediction, if you permit me.
Sorry? Yes.
One prediction. 10 years from now, these questions that you have raised, you will never raise. You will also, yourself will feel time to go back to India.
Well, I hope your sense of optimism is actually reflected in India in the next decades, and a lot of us who are here asking questions actually return to India to work there. So with that with optimism and hope, I wish you all the best for your life. May you stay strong, fit, and healthy, because we need you to speak up on issues. We have a lot of yes men. We need someone there inside the government, but who doesn't shy away from talking on issues. And that's something which is very rare in today's politics. And I think if some of us want to join politics, that's something we should also take into mind. Should not be yes men all the time. So with this, I thank you once again for joining us, and we have to now wrap up the event. So so I hope all of us and all of you who have joined us from social media channels liked our event today. I really look forward to welcoming you all in our future events too. We will keep organizing events from time to time and advertising about those. And I hope you will continue your encouragement and participation in our events. With this, I will end today's event. Thanks for watching.